Teslacam. I hope you're satisfied.
This Model 3 owner was driving down a highway outside of Genoa, Italy when traffic slowed down as drivers passed through a toll station. A noisy, modified BMW in front of our submitter revved up as soon as it cleared the toll booth, but watch what happened next. The BMW driver lost control and collided with another car, then crashed into the barrier before bouncing back, finally stopping right in front of the car it had sideswiped. The victim was actually a student driver who'd been receiving a driving lesson from an instructor, and the vehicle was owned by the driving school. Now that's a driving lesson. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Everyone involved was able to immediately exit their vehicles. That's gotta be a rough way to experience your first vehicle collision. What do you think the driving instructor told the student after this happened? Give us your best guess in the comments and we'll send a Wham Bam hat to a randomly selected winner. Mamma mia! Adam was headed to Disney World with his family when they witnessed an oncoming truck lose control and smash into the median barrier. Adam was certain the truck would flip over the barrier, but incredibly, the trucker was able to save it. Adam was able to change lanes and protect his 3-week-old Model Y from being struck by any debris. Christine was on her way to get some tacos in downtown Los Angeles and was waiting to turn left at a traffic light. She was watching a police car turn when, wham! She witnessed a collision happen right in front of her. The cop car made a U-turn and returned to the collision scene, so Christine decided it wasn't necessary for her to stick around. She wanted to shout out her brother, who's been watching our channel for the past 2 years, for suggesting she send us her video. Thanks, bro. Get it? Because he's her brother? Yeah, you get it. Roadhouse and his wife were driving in French Valley, California. After coming to a red light and stopping behind other traffic, they felt a sudden impact from behind. As Roadhouse got out to inspect the damage, his wife rolled down the passenger window and asked, "Is it a Honda bump?" Roadhouse laughed and replied, "No, it's a VW," before exchanging insurance information with the other driver. Sadly, this isn't the first time their Model Y has witnessed a rear-end collision. Take a look at this next video. This time, Roadhouse was driving home on I-15 one morning after a 13-hour night shift. He was getting ready to take the exit to I-215 when traffic slowed down and the driver of the SUV in front of him turned on their hazard lights when they slammed on the brakes, forcing Roadhouse to hit the brakes as well. When he heard a loud crack behind him, he checked his rearview mirror only to discover full-on carnage. He began to roll forward and made a small maneuver in case he needed to get out of the way, but thankfully, the red sedan that had rammed into the SUV veered onto the shoulder. The out-of-control SUV then T-boned a car in the adjacent lane. We even get to see the license plate fly past the front of his Tesla after the impact. Once he'd gotten home, he downloaded his Teslacam video and called the California Highway Patrol. He was eventually put in touch with the responding officer and was able to give him a statement and a copy of the footage. The driver of the red sedan was found responsible and was cited for following too closely, rear-ending the SUV and causing the damage to the third vehicle. Bharat was driving his Model Y and had just exited a highway when he watched a Nissan run a stop sign. Whoa, that was a close one. After Bharat slammed on his brakes so hard, he wasn't sure if he'd made contact with the Nissan or not. Thankfully, when he stopped to check for damage, he couldn't find any. Phew! Thor was driving when he noticed an SUV driver up ahead of him was behaving erratically, swerving in and out of their lane, and he began to suspect that something was wrong. When they began crossing a bridge, the SUV suddenly sideswiped a guardrail before swerving into oncoming traffic. At that point, Thor called 911 and reported the dangerous driver. He eventually was able to provide the operator with the SUV's license plate number before they asked him to back off. Let's hope they caught up with this driver before anything worse happened. Brennan was driving to the Anaheim Convention Center for the final California Designer Con when the truck in front of him suddenly swerved and a wild shovel appeared. Brennan wasn't using the full self-driving beta and didn't evade the shovel quickly enough on his own. His front left tire ran over the shovel and sent it flying off the highway. Brennan immediately pulled over toward an exit and called Tesla roadside assistance. They guided him through the process of making an insurance claim in his Tesla app. His wife was shaken up, but she needed to get to the convention right away. She summoned an Uber, and 15 minutes later, a Tesla Model 3 pulled up to pick her up. Brennan went with his Tesla as it was towed to a tire shop after waiting an hour for a tow truck. Brennan only had to pay $40 out of pocket to get back on the road. Gerwin had parked his Tesla one night in his work parking garage during a company party. During the festivities, Gerwin had no idea what his Tesla had begun recording in the parking garage. A man walked up to a Mercedes parked next to Gerwin's Tesla before smashing the window, folding down the back seat, and stealing bags from the trunk. See this guy who evidently witnessed the whole thing? It turns out he's actually the thief's getaway driver. When Gerwin returned to the garage with a colleague and discovered the break-in, they called the police, who responded within 30 minutes to get a copy of his Teslacam footage. Tien was driving his Model Y in Nashville, Tennessee. He had just stopped at a red light when a premium Honda bumped into him. The guy admitted he'd been trying to grab something from the floor on the passenger side. Thanks to Tien's tow hitch, his Tesla didn't seem to be damaged, so they parted ways. By the way, if this happens to you, it's still a good idea to exchange contact info and have your vehicle inspected. Damage to a tow hitch can be difficult to see and very expensive to repair. Art was on his way home after a trip to Lake Arrowhead. On his way back, the fog was so thick he didn't notice rocks had fallen onto the road. Art reacted too late and hit a rock. He quickly stopped to assess his vehicle for damage. Art immediately noticed some obvious damage and parts that would need to be replaced. He told us the repair quote Tesla gave him was $320 for parts alone. Instead, he ordered the parts and installed them himself for only $220. Pear was driving when an oncoming car lost control and headed straight for him before the driver managed to steer away and crash in a ditch. During his evasive maneuver, the other driver sprayed slushy snow onto Pear's windshield, and he told us the loud sound startled him. He also told us the other car was still in the ditch when he drove by the next day. This Model 3 owner was driving to work in Wheaton, Illinois. A Kia driver behind him was weaving in and out of traffic, but he was stuck behind our submitter in the heavy traffic. Eventually, they both merged from the right lane to the left at the same time. A car in front of our submitter also merged, which caused him to slow down. It seems like the Kia driver didn't appreciate that, so he tried once again to get around our submitter before getting stuck again behind a slow car. This time, instead of being patient, the Kia driver tried to muscle his way in front of the Tesla. Even though our submitter laid on the horn, the Kia driver wouldn't back down. Autopilot wasn't engaged, but our submitter told us he could feel resistance in the steering wheel as the car's side collision avoidance activated. He thought contact was made, but when he later checked for damage, he didn't find any. Scott and his son were driving home from a hockey game when, out of nowhere, a cyclist came shooting into the road from in front of a bus. Thankfully, Scott was able to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision. If he'd been a split second later in reaching the pedal, that cyclist would have had a very bad day. Hong was sitting at a red light in Rowland Heights, California. When the light turned green, he'd barely started moving when he had to step on the brakes again. That's right, another Tesla driver wasn't paying attention and ran their red light. Roll the jingle.
Tesla man can't drive that. Tesla man can't drive that. Tesla man can't drive that. Tesla man can't drive.
Thanks to our patrons for keeping the show on the road.